Hi, my name's Paul. I'm married to Sally and we're on the leadership team of Common Ground in Constantiaberg. I've been asked to share some lessons on our journey in seeking to live a generous life. As a young adult, before becoming a Christ follower, the pursuit of wealth was one of my goals. By my mid-20s, I had largely realized this goal, but found that instead of feeling satisfaction and joy, I felt empty, disillusioned, and a lack of purpose for living. At that time, I was invited to a church meeting where I was captivated by God's love for me, and that night I found Jesus, who is true wealth indeed. Getting to know Jesus has changed my life's focus from self to seeking to live for God and others. God's generosity to me has led to God's generosity through me. After marrying Sally, I soon discovered the same heart in her, and together we find such joy in partnering with God by seeking to live generously with our time, talents, and also our treasure. Regarding financial generosity, I'd like to briefly share 3 of the many lessons that we've learned and continue to learn. Lesson 1. Where God guides, He provides. Years ago, God called us to move to England to minister. Although we were certain of the call, paying for an international relocation, buying a house and cars, all left a gaping financial hole. Obeying God's guidance came at a cost. We had no option other than to dig into our retirement funding. This didn't seem to make any financial sense, but we felt prompted to trust God with our finances as we sought His kingdom first. Quite unexpectedly, when we returned 4 years later, the British housing market had boomed and the South African rand had weakened. Our money had doubled. We felt humbled by God's provision and amazing grace. Lesson 2. Some money is for us and some is to support God's work. We need to tell the difference. Early in our walk, Sally and I learned to give a percentage of our income to God's work, but that doesn't necessarily mean the rest is for us. Incidentally, someone I know well was challenged over 30 years ago to live frugally on 10% and give 90% to God's work. God has faithfully provided for them ever since. In our own lives, we once wanted to do some alterations to our home to more effectively host God's people. I got a quote and we prayed. 2 weeks later, I did a significant deal where I received the full amount of money needed. However, that day we heard of an urgent need in the building program of the church we were in. The amount needed was what we had received. Sally and I realized that maybe this money wasn't for our project after all, but God wanted to use us as a channel. We felt peace and gave it to the building fund need. We prayed again for our alterations budget. Another unusual deal, and again I received all I needed. But that night at the prayer meeting, we heard of another financial need in God's work. Sally and I again agreed to err on the side of caution and gave the money. To cut a long story short, this happened 6 times. By now, we had given a total equivalent to the value of our house. The 7th time the money came in, we waited. After 2 weeks, God didn't seem to highlight any other cause, so we accepted this as a gift from Him and went ahead with our alterations. We got our improved home, but more importantly, God's work was greatly provided for, and we were sure that we hadn't spent God's money on ourselves. Lesson 3. Generosity is life at its best. So many times we've felt prompted to give what seemed like a random amount, only to find we'd met someone's need exactly. They rejoiced in God's kindness, and we rejoiced in the privilege of being used by God. Sally and I are as committed now as ever to seeking God's wisdom and offering ourselves to Him as channels for His generosity in every area of our lives. What a thrilling adventure! So many people ask, can I trust God with my money? But don't realize God is asking, can I trust you with mine?